Sandrine, by Councilmember Tiedemann, and Julie Winklestein by soon-to-be outgoing member Gary. I guess we'd certainly like to convey back to the council that it'd be great to have 7 members of the CMAC. I note also that the election is going to be happening. We'll have at least 2 members, and presumably the council is supposed to appoint a replacement for member Gary. So I don't know how they'll constitute themselves, but we would certainly, I guess, like to put in a request to have 2 more members on the committee.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Jack, you have a comment?
Yeah, just as a comment for the CMAX edification is that you may not have heard, but the Albany Film Fest occurred in October. We saw Julian actually outside the theater, so I know he knew about it. But we concluded 6 nights of screening at the Albany Twin. It was well received. Got a lot of filmmakers there. We hoped attendance had been a little better than it was, but sort of like the submissions to the Film Fest, they were down as well. So I think coming back after COVID is a challenge. And I think we're very happy that it came off the way it did and people were satisfied with it. But just to let you know what's been happening with Film Fest, that's what I wanted to report.
Okay, I've got a few announcements. Probably the most significant one is we are making our journey back into in-person meetings. Our technology is holding strong for both hybrid in-person meetings on the Zoom platform at City Hall Council Chambers. So fairly happy with the way that's taking place, and I'm learning something with every new meeting that goes through. Essentially, we're doing 4 program broadcasts to 4 distinctly different audience, 1 in room, 1 to YouTube, 1 to TV, and 1 to the Zoom virtual audience. And I think, by, just kind of hearing back from everybody, it seems to work okay for everybody in each one of those places. It's not an ideal experience all around. There's definitely some things that our staff needs to understand and learn about in terms of managing the technology inside the room. But for the most part, there haven't been any technical issues at all. So it's a very stable platform, and it's allowing us to continue to offer people an in-person experience with the ability to kind of connect with a meeting body anywhere. We're slowly bringing in some of the commissions now in October and November and December, and it looks like we'll be planning to bring committees back in person likely in January. Still a few technical details to work out with exactly how we do that staffing, because as you all know, and maybe the audience knows, our KALB media operation is precisely 1 person, which is me. And so it's hard to be in all of those places all at the same time. But yes, as things, move back to in-person events and we kind of move away from pandemic programming and activities, I would imagine that the goal of KALB would be to get it back out into the community more and do more work out there like we've done in the past over the years. We had a very robust program with the high school, being at Solano Stroll, filming various activities, student sports, community events. But it's a challenge to manage a crew of people. It takes more than just 1 person to do any of that. It requires, as we've talked about in CMAC for many years, putting together multiple people at many different levels, paid staff, volunteers, high school students, organizing all of that takes a considerable amount of time. And so over these next few years, as we kind of build back up from a 1-person operation, I would imagine we'd start doing some more of that. Although one of the things that I should mention in this last bit of my announcements is the recreation staff has really taken over managing their own events for the community. We've brought back a few things. Our first in-person event was the expo way back in April, but we did I think 3 concerts. We did a July 4th concert in the park, and then another concert at the end of August and at the end of September, all of which didn't need me to be a live sound engineer or do any of that production work. They were able to manage that all on their own by hiring entertainment acts that would come with their own staff sound system. We provide the space, we provide the power, and then they do all of the entertaining. And so it seems to be kind of shifting towards that for some of the larger events that we've done in the past. But, you know, we'll see. There's a few things on deck for the next year, and I'll keep the committee apprised as those things come back.
And Jeremy, just to ask a quick question, because I think this goes to the comment and whether or not we want to add it to future agenda. But in terms of like live events, whether it be stroll, sporting events, elections, is that to this committee to determine like how Albany shows up, and then we lean on the different groups that are putting it like to kind of run it on their own? Or I just want to understand our role in that.
The committee's role, I mean, this would be, and this, we'd have to look here in terms of the work plan, but at different points in the committee's past, part of what I remember, one of the past work plan items was managing volunteers and putting an effort forth to find who the community players are who want to be involved, getting them together and kind of corralling them to be a crew. Sometimes that's a little bit easier to do outside the scope of an official city advisory body, just with the types of plannings and meetings that would happen. So in response to your question, that would be something that the committee would consider if there was a way it was connected to the current work plan, or at some point in the future adding to the work plan. That would be primarily running those sort of things would be a staff operational type of programming, but the committee certainly hasn't been involved throughout the course of the committee's existence in helping facilitate that.
If I can add to that, we have in the past had a programming subcommittee that would make recommendations on the kinds of things to put on KALB. And so I don't know, like Jeremy's saying, I don't know if that's really reflected in the current work plan, but it's something that could be considered in the future.
Mm-hmm. The committee in the past would come up with ideas, and then staff would look at ways of, the possibility of implementing those ideas.
Yeah.
Or one of the other things in the past was, the committee members would organize amongst themselves with other people, create content, because anybody can provide content to the city. So, as we all know, it takes a long time to both film, create, edit, and then finalize something so that it's deliverable. If people were able to do that and give it to us, we would love to be able to play it. And I think that concludes my announcements for now.
Mr. Chair, if I can just add to my previous comments about the Film Fest, I neglected to give a lot of credit to Jeremy and to Naomi for helping the Film Fest take place this year. Naomi organized the programming, so we had some really enticing films for people to watch and a good interplay with the filmmakers. And Jeremy got the whole program together. I mean, it wouldn't have happened without his help to organize it and get it in the format that we needed to show it at the theater. So I want to thank both of them.
Thank you.
Can I talk?
Oh, sorry. Go for it.
Thanks. Yeah, I just want to say thank you to Jeff Thanks to, thanks to Jeremy, and Jack did a tremendous amount of work, much more than he probably thought he was going to do. So I truly commend Jack, and another person without whom this would not have happened, all the way from the beginning to the gala host. So good job.
Well, since we're doing all of this, we should also be sure to congratulate Ellen Toomey, who's part of your other
Yes.
your trio of Film Fest. If I can add to the rest of my announcements, the city is in the process of helping Film Fest transition to be a standalone, independent nonprofit, and the three of them have really taken they've taken a big giant step off of a cliff to put it together, and have done a wonderful job, making all of this happen. Keeping the Film Fest alive in downtown Albany, and and then being supported by the city. So they were awarded a what we call this? A grant, an award, sponsor money. The city's supported, a fairly large part of the film festival, in addition to, providing my time to kind of format everything so it was in a playable context. And, looking forward to the years to come to, a nice collaboration between the city and the Film Fest.
Yeah.
Okay, as we look into our agenda, there's no presentations tonight. I must apologize. I wasn't able to find my previous documents for our social media reporting, but I'll be sure to put that on the agenda for the next one.
That leaves us with just a single possible action, and that's advisory board status report.
Yeah, I can update you at the. I'll have to at the. I can't remember which meeting it was in September, but Mayor Jordan put a request out that all advisory bodies complete a status report of the work plan items that have been completed or have not started yet, to kind of get a finger on the pulse of what's happening in Albany. Mm-hmm. In the attachments, if you didn't see that, I put the letter, the memo from Mayor Jordan, as well as a copy of our work plan, the CMAQ work plan, and then a work plan with annotations as best as I could recall from what the committees have, the committee, the subcommittees have worked on. If you'd like, I can pull that up, and Chair, if you just want to kind of walk us through it, I can bring that up on screen.
Thank you.
Sure. Yeah, I've got it here as well. It's navigating it on the little screen in the chat.
Sure. Yeah, I've got it here. Let me just go ahead and I'll bring that up. So can everybody see this?
Yeah.
Okay, so this is just the work plan. You all have seen and worked on this. Nothing has changed, but as we go through each item, I put some notes in here, and if you would like, I can modify these accordingly. What we'll also be looking for is a committee member, it could be the chair, it could be anybody else, who is able to go to one of the November meetings and report back to the council. And that would be an in-person meeting at the council chambers. I do believe that there would be some ability for advisory body members to come in remotely, although I haven't specified that with the city clerk. So likely it would be in person, but there would be the option to come in remotely if you wanted to talk with the council should they have any questions.
Yeah, and that's actually something I could take on. We'll be local. I'll be here as of the 2nd of November, and I presume their first meeting, they probably have 2 prior to Thanksgiving, is my guess?
Correct.
Yeah, I think I could be agendized by them at either of the 2.
Yeah, I'm not sure which one specifically it would be because of the scheduling for the other advisory bodies. I'm not sure who's first or how they've organized that, but if the committee can assign the person who I'll work with to prepare this final report that we'll send to council, that could be the person, Russ, and if that's going to be you and I could work on this together, unless the committee has any other thoughts about this.
I move that it be member Stapleton Gray.
One of those belling the cat things, isn't it?
We're not quite ready for motions yet, but
I'm ready
keep
when
that
we
on
are.
deck. All right. So looking at the regular reports, we did do the quarterly reports, except for tonight on the communication analytics, and received updates on Film Fest activities. Those are kind of the regular things. The recurring action items is where I see a number of things that haven't been started yet. And is there any discussion around this or anything else that I should change in? Has any of these things happened? We can just go point by point on each work plan, and you can let me know if I need to make any changes.
Yeah. Well, on this first one, I think it requires it to hear from this, I suppose. And I know there would be opinions as to what ought to go into a survey, but I don't know as we know that there is going to be a next survey or when. So we could certainly, in addressing the council, request that the council ask us to participate in this.
We're ready and willing.
Okay. Yeah, I am not certain about what the statuses of any citywide surveys are, but that could certainly be something that could be, discussed with the council.
Yeah, and we put in this annual survey on an assumption that they might.
Mm-hmm.
For all we know, they're not doing another one ever, or they may have one planned already. But
right. Okay, so still not started, but we would talk with them about that. The next one is increase accessibility to non-internet users. Recommend ways to create community partnerships, exploring and researching options such as print flyers, postcards, paper signs, digital signage. Let's see.
Is this the bulletin board committee?
Well, yeah, that would be the digital signage
committee
portion of it. But I don't know if the bulletin board committee was specifically looking at other analog ways of delivering information. I don't know if that ever got discussed. I don't think that ever got specifically discussed by CMAC.
Okay, well, Julian and I did meet on the bulletin board part of it.
Mm-hmm.
And we're sort of at a stalemate right now. We need more guidance as far as where to go to get comparisons from other local city jurisdictions who have public access channel, or they have some means of communication for their meetings or their information.
Well, I know I talked about this maybe last year at some point. We were looking at some different types of kiosk type signage around town, and the city of Berkeley just implemented some of those kind of sidewalk digital signage installations. Maybe you might want to check with the city of Berkeley, because I know that I saw them in downtown, with some paid advertising, vertical images and some calendar items. I don't know if that was through a third party or if that was through the city, but I did notice that outside the Freight and Salvage on Addison, there was one.
Okay. You don't know who that might, what part of the city?
No, but I was looking at a similar type of product a couple of years ago through Verizon, but Verizon stopped providing that product, where there were these, large scale kiosks that could be installed with, and they receive all of their content through a cloud-based platform, and then you push it out to all the different locations.
Because we did talk about the existing bulletin boards that we have in the city.
Yep.
And how to utilize them. And there was some talk about some large scale freeway size bulletin boards. I don't know what's happened with that. So I don't know if that's what we want to pursue either. But.
Okay. All right. So we'll probably want to add some of the different options here to the status. based on your conversations. Jack or Julian, would you mind emailing me just a few bullet points on what the nature of your discussions were, and I could add that in here?
I have that, unless Julian has some other stuff too.
I guess my only question was where we're at a stalemate was who we were going to reach out to other cities and just trying to understand like who those people might be.
I would just probably start at the city manager's department and look for somebody who's working in either communications or public access. That would probably be the best way to start, because every city has a different way of, there's not like a specific department, like you're going to a building permit and it's always going to be the same thing. It may be, but I think the city manager's office or somebody within the administrative staff should be able to connect you with whoever each city has working on those types of things. I don't have any specific contacts at other cities, but I do have access to a public to a PEG listserv, and I could reach out and ask them if there is any contacts, and I could see if I could get a response. So I could do that.
That'd be good.
Great. Yeah. Thank you.
All right. Any other questions on this one? Or, all right. Explore providing citywide broadband access, free low-cost devices, and access to electricity. Ensure that digital communications can reach the most underserved community members, including those who are unhoused, to ensure all community members can participate and add their voices. To my knowledge, I don't think anybody has started work on this particular item.
Yeah, and that probably would have been Julie's had she not left.
Okay. Got it. Recommendations to city on how Film Fest can support city goals to promote arts, social justice, sustainability, and economic development. I know that that Film Fest has done a few things like that. Is there any other information that I should add in this report, Jack and Naomi, that would make sense in this context?
Well, I mean, I think Film Fest does promote the arts just by virtue of being a film festival.
Mm-hmm.
So it keeps the arts in front of the community as a part of the community. In terms of social justice, I could say that we had a new award this year for social justice films.
Yeah, that would be.
Yeah, that was big for us.
Yeah.
Sustainability, we have a whole night devoted to films about sustainability and environment. And Jack?
Well, I was just going to say that a goal of the Film Fest is always to connect with the business community in Albany, and just having an event at the Albany Twin is a way to make that connection. It's not as, this year was not as full-throated embrace of the business community, just because we didn't have an opportunity to do a raffle or to do a discount program with restaurants nearby the Film Fest. We just ran out of time to get other things organized like that. So it's still a goal, though, to promote the business community and have the Film Fest attract people to that area for the films, but also to the local merchants.
Would either of you be able to send me an additional couple sentences that we could plug into this?
Nope. I'll do it.
Okay.
When is this needed by?
Within the next week or so, I think.
Yeah. Okay.
I think it needs to go to council a week prior to the first meeting. So sometime next week would be fine.
Okay.
Okay, so next is recommendations and concrete steps for how the city can better communicate and share information with and about Albany School District, actively promote partnerships between the city and AUSD, including city internships, special programs, in support of KLB operations, other city functions, creating opportunities for students to present at council meetings. I wrote not started, but I think, Ross, you were looking into a few of these things.
Yeah, well, I did address the school board. I believe it was in June. And it will be interesting that we basically will have three new members of the school board, because effectively we've got 4 people running and one of them doesn't want the job and is actively trying to get off the ballot. So I'll know those folks. So the connections are good, but I hadn't followed up beyond that with any formal. I couldn't speak for KLB, say if there's any action on that front.
Yeah. So what do you think? Not started or a cursory start?
I would say cursory, and I'm certainly happy to sort of follow up from that.
Okay. So obviously the first annual survey is what we talked about already, not started. Template for the quarterly city report that captures key metrics. The CMAC will be evaluating. Actually, I'm sorry, that has been started because I did do that. That is done. Recommend that the city of Albany develop an external communications plan. That hasn't been started. That is actually kind of walking the line between a staff administrative policy. However, the committee could weigh in and share their opinion on this. I don't think anything else has happened with CMAC regarding this one-time action item.
Which was the third bullet?
Yeah, third bullet, yeah.
No, I mean, it's more or less an ask of the city.
Okay. Next is guidelines and recommendations for how CMAC can help advisory bodies work synergistically and communicate effectively with the Albany community. I think we had a subcommittee of that, correct?
We did, though Naomi and I didn't really meet on this, so I would say this is still pending.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then lastly, guidelines for the city of Albany to act as a centralized location for disseminating relevant and appropriate information from outside private NGOs in a fair and unbiased manner related to issues that impact the community, such as health and equity, climate change, sustainability, housing, poverty, and homelessness. Fairly sure that hasn't started yet. So it's a laudable goal, but I don't, and nobody here already has started working on that. I don't think we created a subcommittee on that item yet. Okay. All right, that brings us to the end. There's no other future work plan items here. I'm going to go ahead and stop the share. Before we go to public comment, are there any other questions before we go into a discussion?
I had one. It's just on that bullet point about working with other advisory bodies. I think we ran into a little snag trying to implement that. That every advisory body has their own agenda, and if they're going to invite us as members of CMAC to come and talk about this issue, it needs to be on their agenda. And so we need to, as CMAC, to put out the call, I think, to the other advisory committees to be thinking about that and if they want us to come and speak to them. Because otherwise it gets mixed up in all the Brown Act and the bureaucratic stuff about who can speak and who can't and who's representing whom.
Yeah, on that, I spoke in front of the school board, but it's because there is a period for public comment, and I availed myself of that. Had I sent a letter saying, can I speak on behalf of CMAC? So it may be appropriate for us as a committee to send to all of the other committees, essentially, that request for an invitation to participate, to be agendized.
Right. Okay, and I can I'll check with the city clerk to find the most appropriate way for the committee to do something like that, if that's, possible.
Yeah, and the way I think we would execute on it, that if we were asked, well, can you speak at the whenever meeting, we can then just take a set of volunteers here for who would like to go essentially read the brief and describe the CMAC, request their attendance at our meetings if they'd like, or they're being agendized to speak at our meetings, so we can kick that off by an invitation letter, essentially, or a request for invitation of us to any of these Brown Act covered committees.
We would like you to invite us. We'd like to invite you to invite us.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's more to go to their committee and listen to what issues they have that they would like to have better communication about.
And that we can do, minus an invitation, even to the point of speaking in a public comment period, without an expectation that they could then have a discussion in that session.
Yeah.
So long as you say that you're speaking on behalf of yourself and not on behalf of the committee while you're there in public comment.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, it looks like we have one hand raised. If it's okay, I can go ahead and bring in public comment.
Yeah, just wanted to say I've been hugely busy for the last several months as the company I was working for shut down in August. I've now completed week 4 of a new company, so I'm sort of back and gainfully employed, and it makes my scheduling a lot easier.
Good.
Okay, so are we ready for a public comment on this?
Yeah.
Okay. Go ahead, Jeremiah.
Thanks. Yeah, so I mentioned 2 things. One regarding the public bulletins, public signage, public notices. I was wondering about the big bellies on Solano. I noticed they're not really updated very often, and one side is usually left blank. And I was wondering if that could be more utilized, considering that it's already put in place, the money's already spent, it's already physically there, it's just being underutilized. And so I was just kind of right now just raising awareness to remember that that's a possibility to use more often, more regularly. I mean, could put something there every week, and there's so many different big bellies. So, one can have this, one can have that, one can have another advertisement or just a public notice for different things. One, for example, one can just say, Albany Cares, Project Hope, here's the phone number. Because we have the sign, the big banner outside of the fire department at City Hall says, Albany Cares. If you need help, call this number. Maybe we could put something similar on one of those big bellies, or, each big belly can post, public meetings, the Planning and Zoning Commission. Here's their agenda, and here's a Zoom link on this big belly, or, Social and Economic Justice Commission, or even City Council, right? Right in front of the library, or I'm just right in front of the post office. City Council agenda, City Council meeting. Here's a time. Here's a date. That sort of thing. And for another example, I think I spoke enough on that. The CMAC coming to public meetings, right? So SEJC, I'm sure would love, your attendance and outreach. Just to let you know, the SEJC housing subcommittee is going to be doing a housing forum on November 10th in the lobby of the recreation center and the library. So that's a public space, and so a housing subcommittee is going to be doing a forum, and it's basically a listening session to where Albany residents can come in and, ask questions to the SEJC regarding that. So, that, and maybe just some more. Yeah. So thank you.
Okay. We actually we you know the big bellies, you know, prior to the pandemic, I think the last time that we filled those up, actually during the pandemic, we put in some signage in there, but yeah, Jeremiah is correct that, you know, they don't get updated because it's just, you know, it is a challenge. It's a logistical challenge trying to keep updated paper in those sleeves on the big bellies. It takes, you know, several hours to go to to all of them here in the city and drop those in. Those frames are actually not very easy to open and put things back in. And you really need, for any of the kind of promotional messaging posters that the city creates, were those to be added to the mix for every campaign that the city does, it probably would be a good idea, but it's certainly, you know, time and effort and cost to produce, you know, 35 or 40, I can't remember what the total number is, to replace those, and certainly several hours to walk to each one of those. And perhaps that's something that a volunteer, you know, would be available to do at some point. But I think that is, you know, one of the reasons why, you know, content isn't shared that way in those advertising frames. There is also a deal with the provider that they're supposed to be available for some other, and this may have changed, you know, in the last 3 or 4 years that I, you know, learned about the Big Belly relationship with the company that provides those, because I think some of those are supposed to stay available for some of their other paying clients, and some of them are able, you know, available for the city to use, something like that.
You know, I'm kicking myself for not submitting a CMAC marketing related fall into haiku.
Right. Okay, I don't believe that we need to take an actual vote, but is there any other discussion on the process of presenting the work plan status update at one of the council meetings? I believe that we can just, you know, amongst the committee can decide to have one of its members to do the presentation, and I think that has been all agreed to, that Ross will be the sharer of information.
Yeah, I will be available, so I'd be happy to fill that cat.
Okay, so if everybody can send me whatever contributions should be added, you know, a couple sentences, I will work with the chair, create the final document, and that will go to the council as the official report. And Ross will be available for one of those meetings to make the presentation and answer any questions the council may have.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I assume there will be multiple committees making reports at the city council meeting.
Correct. Yeah. I think all of them are on the schedule to, but I don't know what that schedule is, but all of them will be finalizing their reports and presenting to council in November. Okay. If that's it on that item, future agenda items for our January meeting. I know that we had some requests from the public to talk about programming or other types of local content.
Yeah, and let me see if I can get a representative from the school district in some form to show up, and we can have a discussion of school, city, CMAC collaboration.
Okay. All right. Anything else from any other future agenda items?
No.
All right. Well, then it takes us to item 8 on the agenda, next meeting, January 23rd, 2022. If now that my schedule is kind of opening up, a little bit more as we've kind of gotten over this big hurdle of getting meetings back in place. Should any of you subcommittees need a little bit of assistance kind of figuring out some of those details, and if I don't respond right away, text me or email me. Again, I won't be offended if you take an all caps tone with me, like Jeremy. But I'll do my best to respond with whatever information you need.
And we have missed a couple meetings, so it's been difficult to keep the momentum going.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And your anticipation for January would be that we would have another virtual meeting?
Likely the January meeting will be in person. I think all committees, I will let you know, I think we'll know specifically in December. I think it's safe to say that we will be returning, but I don't know if it has been officially confirmed that every committee will be coming back at exactly the same time. So I'll let you know well in advance.
Good.
For the January date, I will be in Hawaii.
Okay.
So I will not be in attendance.
One of the things that I should mention is that the governor's state of emergency order is scheduled to end at the end of February, which means that unless the legislature acts and the governor signs something that amends the Brown Act, all advisory body members will have to revert back to the old process of attending remotely, where you notice the actual location and invite the public into your place where you are attending virtually. So in January, while in Hawaii and you wanted to join, you would be able to. However, after February, it would take an act of the California legislature to change the Brown Act so that you could attend remotely. But you could always watch as a faithful viewer.
And I know Brown Act makes some sort of dispensation for remote meetings, like we could meet at a place in Berkeley if one were available. If
That's true.
Swing a Hawaii thing.
Hey, bring CMAC to Hawaii. That's
Yes.
I like that idea.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They have great bulletin boards there, so we need to check them out.
Exactly. All right, everybody. Well, thank you so much for a great meeting that was, on time to, 5 minutes, allowing, Julian, I mentioned this, before, but I'll just go ahead and take this opportunity to say now is that unfortunately, Sandrine had to resign from the committee because she moved out of Albany during this last period of a few months. So she sends her best wishes to everybody.
Okay, great.
All right. Well, thank you, everybody, and have a good night.
Thanks.
Okay.
Thank you.
Right.
Bye.
Bye.